On today's World Insight, Chinese President Xi Jinping's New Year's address highlighted China's responsibility as a major country in 2023, especially as a leader in forums empowering the global south. This is best exemplified in BRICS membership doubling in size. Can an expanded BRICS be a cohesive force for good in the world?
Welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Chinese President Xi Jinping delivered his New Year's message, summarizing the year 2023. On the diplomatic front, Xi remarked that China fulfilled its responsibility as a major country in the year. He acknowledged his attendance at many key international conferences like the Belt and Road Forum or the BRICS Summit, and how developing countries welcomed China's vision for peace and development. But just as importantly, Xi spoke of his travels, including visits to new friends and a nod to his meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden in San Francisco.
中国不仅发展自己，也积极拥抱世界，担当大国责任。我们成功举办中国中亚峰会、第3届“一带一路”国际合作高峰论坛，一系列主场外交迎来5周宾朋。我也访问了一些国家，出席了一些国际会议，会晤了不少老朋友、新伙伴，分享中国主张，深化彼此共识。世事变迁，和平发展始终是主旋律，合作共赢始终是硬道理。
Looking ahead, this year, BRICS will welcome new members: Egypt, Ethiopia, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. BRICS Plus account for half of the world's population, and their share of GDP is 20% greater than the G7. What does the expanded BRICS mean for the world? For more insights, let's loop in our panelists. Joining us in Tehran, Professor Mohammad Marandi, professor at Tehran University. In Cairo, Professor Magid Batros, who is a professor in political science with the Department of Political Science at Helwan University. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. Later in the program, we are also expecting a Chinese guest. Let's start by talking about, gentlemen, the opening of the year 2024 welcomes the expansion of the BRICS countries. Now, both Iran and Egypt are on the list. Tell us more about what your expectations are.
Yes, I think it's an important part of Iran's integration, economic integration with the rest of the global south, especially since the West is sanctioning Iran with a host of other countries. Hopefully mechanisms will be developed where the global south can trade and invest and work together without being threatened by Western governments that use Western financial institutions and the US dollar as weapons. And I think now, especially that since the Israelis are carrying out these atrocities, it's actually bringing countries like Iran and Egypt closer to each other at a time when BRICS is expanding. So I think that gives BRICS added strength.
I see. Professor Batros, what is your expectation coming from Egypt's side?
Well, we are very optimistic about what would be happening in BRICS after the expansion. We expect that the de-dollarization process by the interbank transactions with national currencies improving, that would improve the economic conditions that will relieve Egypt from an economic crisis. Egypt is no different than other countries in the world witnessing those global crises. Egypt in particular is facing pressures of the low availability or let me put it this way, problem with the availability in dollars. So that would relieve the pressures from the Egyptian economy.
All right. So before we talk about the grand potential, let's focus on some of the specifics. Of course, we see Argentina this time will not be able to join as planned earlier. But if you look at the new members joining, Saudi Arabia and Iran, Egypt, and also Ethiopia, we have seen some different interests, for example, among the new members. How do you interpret the nature of cooperation, and what does that mean for the countries involved in this platform vis-a-vis their bilateral relations?
Yes, I think it's clear that the West, which has dominated the world literally for centuries, has begun to decline. And as it declines, its policy of divide and rule and creating divisions in different parts of the world, but in particular in our part of the world because of the existence of oil and gas, this policy is beginning to fail. The less the West has power, the less ability it has to divide and rule. And so we are witnessing new opportunities in our region being created as a result. And the rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia is just one such instance.
What kind of opportunities is that?
Well, the two countries are energy exporters. They are very influential countries. And I should add Egypt as well, as I said earlier. Yeah. But so this triangle is very important. These are key countries of the region. Egypt and Iran, of course, being civilizational states. But these three countries, they really form the central axis for stability in the region, and therefore bringing them closer to each other can enhance the lives of ordinary people, bring about greater movement, ability of citizens for trade, for business. Well, I think BRICS, because of its particular platform, and that it is, for now, more economically focused, it can bring the economies closer to each other. And therefore, you can see greater investment between the two countries. Iran is a part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Saudi Arabia can use roads and railway that pass through Iran to Central Asia and to China. Iran and Russia are building a north-south transport corridor. Saudi Arabia can use that as well to import and export. Iran can utilize the enormous potential of the Saudi market for its goods, or to facilitate trade from Central Asia, China, and Russia through Iran to Saudi Arabia. So there is so much that can be done. We have to keep in mind that in the past, the United States has kept this region in separate islands. Unlike for example, in the European Union, where the economies are integrated, they've managed to keep our countries and people separate.
I see.
But if there is economic integration, the well-being of ordinary citizens across West Asia would become much better, potentially, if, of course, the United States does not cause further trouble.
The third party's role is always an interesting one, isn't it? Go to you, Professor Baltros. It seems that Professor Morandi gave some specific expectations, even between Iran and Saudi Arabia. What about for Egypt and also Ethiopia? We know there is some different opinions, to put the least, about some natural resources issue. The water of the Nile River, of course, has been a focus point in terms of debates between Egypt and Ethiopia. Professor, do you see there can be better chance that the two countries, after joining the platform of BRICS, be able to focus on more common ground? If so, what might be the opportunities?
Ethiopia has been negotiating for about 12 years now in vain. No no result, no positive results, no positive outcomes. So what we are hoping to have is a multilateral negotiations. When it is in the context of a broader picture, it might have a result by pressures from world powers. I believe that China would play a role.
You both talk about the currency issue, the US dollar. Many say this is a long time to come. Many say that this is an issue that needs to be discussed and also worked out over a long stretch of time. Would that be too, shall I say, beyond realism when you expect the BRICS would play a role to compete with the US dollar? Professor Morandi.
And since there are very powerful economies involved, and many of them are sanctioned, this even creates further incentive for a way forward to be created, which not only benefits sanctioned countries, it benefits, as your guest in Cairo pointed out, it benefits everyone because of the problems that exist with the US dollar. But I would also like to add something to the previous question, and that is that Ethiopia and Egypt, just like Iran and Saudi Arabia and all other countries, when their leaders gather together on the sidelines of such conferences, they have greater opportunities to interact. So these gatherings both have bilateral aspects to them and multilateral. It provides greater opportunity for bilateral interaction, but also it provides opportunities for multilateral cooperation and also opportunities like what we saw between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which was again alluded to previously, where countries like China could play a role in decreasing tensions and therefore creating better cooperation between countries.
Professor Morandi, thank you so much for joining us. Later, Professor Bogus, we are going to be joined by a Chinese guest in the later half of our program. You're watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to World Insight. Our discussion focused today on the expansion of the BRICS starting from January the 1st, 2024. Once again, joining us in the latter half of the program, Cairo, Magid Boutros, who is a professor in the political science department with Helwan University. In Beijing, Professor He Wenping, senior research fellow at the Institute of West Asian and African Studies with Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Welcome to both of you. Earlier in the program, we already heard the opinions coming from two new members of the BRICS, Egypt and also Iran. Now, one of the things we have noticed is whether the discussion about the BRICS versus the West, is it more about confrontation or is it more about the developing countries refuse to accept a binary world and therefore try to engage among themselves and also the rest of the world? Professor He.
I prefer to agree the opinion the latter one. It's not a platform saying this is a confrontation between the North and the South. I don't agree with this opinion at all. This world now needs more united together because now we are moving to the further this economic globalization. We are against those that dealing decouple this kind of opinion, especially some forces, some politicians. They are using the ideology flag, even trying to divide this world. Now they want to label like BRICS or whatever. This is some kind of new ideology there against the North. I don't think so. This is just unification among those emerging economy. Now with the new members coming from like Egypt, Ethiopia, they are all also the big economy in their area. So to join together, to engage more with the North, and then to make this world more inclusive in its economic cooperation.
Professor Boutros, what's your opinion about this?
I can't agree more with what your guest from China, the professor, mentioned an integration rather than confrontation. It's, in my opinion, it's more of a balance of the trade. Instead of the hegemony and the dominance of the post-World War II economic realities and political realities, we are trying to balance. Balance meaning that I do not want to be dominated by a superpower that puts pressure on my economy by the dollarization. As we mentioned earlier, the petrodollar dominates the international trade in energy. Now we are offsetting this issue by having an interbank cooperation mechanisms and the creation of the new development bank by BRICS that will offset those pressures.
In 2023, Professor He, China organized the summit of the Central Asian countries and also the Belt and Road Initiative. Tell me more about, given the latest New Year speech by the Chinese president, what do you think are some of the most important takeaways that China, in terms of diplomacy, in terms of economic and trade cooperation, could draw from the year 2023 and moving on to 2024, contributing to the BRICS platform?
Yes, actually, compared with those like Belt and Road, the third summit, and also, like you mentioned, the China and the Central Asian, those summit, all those summit has been taken place. I think they're all on the same page, like with this BRICS expansion, because we just talked about this BRICS itself. Ever since its beginning, it has been established, and then getting South Africa in, and now getting more 5 countries in. There's no single words in all those documents talking about confrontation or like rivalry with who and who, or North country or United States, not at all. Talk about this connectivity, cooperation among those member countries and also with other countries together. With developing country, of course, as a united force, because all those single developing countries themselves, no matter Egypt, no matter China or India, if just with its own force, with its own GDP, of course, it's not that big enough. And then, of course, you cannot handle everything by yourself. Now we are in this global economy, like some development advantage China has, and then we need other countries' development advantage, and then make them together.
Okay.
Like Egypt has lots of agricultural fruits we need it in China. So that is why China's diplomacy now is continued, because we are the biggest developing country in this global south. So we will continue to work together, united further with BRICS members, new members, old members, and also with Central Asian countries. So, and then to make this group more powerful, and then we have more bargaining leverage.
I would also like to have your opinions on what China did and also the ways that China interacts with the global south.
Well, as a matter of fact, China is playing a pivotal role in the Middle East now. As our colleague from Tehran just mentioned, that China hosted the rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Now China is trying to play a very important role and proposing a solution for the Palestinian problem. China is very active in Africa and Asia in developmental projects and initiatives. All those roles, politically and economically, increase the leverage of China.
I think both of you suggest that there's going to be strong momentum for economic and trade cooperation. One has to note that the global south, some of the emerging economies are suffering from some of the setbacks after years of the pandemic, including China. The growth rate compared to earlier years is relatively smaller despite efforts. So, Professor He, how much is there of space of interaction and creating common prosperity among the BRICS members this year, for example?
At this moment, that's more important to play the platform of this BRICS. Because as I just mentioned, we need to unite together rather than separated with each other. You see that China need to further expand our trade volume with the many countries, even though we don't talk about the United States. But if our trade volume with the United States is getting less, and then we need also other member, our country within this BRICS, also within this BRI as a whole, those members join the BRI, and then to come up to add those trade volume with China, and also China's business company, they also need to go to international market. Go to where? They need to go to like BRI members. They need to go to this BRICS new member of these countries. Actually, I joined several of those workshops at the end of last year. And then the people, some business, those friends, they all eyes on like a new member of those BRICS. So you maybe will go to UAE, go to Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Egypt, Ethiopia, because now they got a new this head that is no longer member of a global South. They're also the new member of the BRICS.
Well, to me, BRICS is not only the transaction of goods and services, but also it is a sustainable development initiative. Now, if I build up capacities, production capacities, that's the main aim rather than merely exchange of goods and services. To me, the BRICS is playing a very important role. That's what developing countries need. Don't give me a fish, teach me how to fish. It's not only just a little transaction. It is merely building capacity or capacity building.
If I could follow up, Professor Boutros, as you have noticed from last year, Chinese economy is going through a grand transition, and now that process is still ongoing. And as a result, there's both opportunities and challenges. Meanwhile, when China working with foreign countries on economic and trade cooperation, you see more investment, targeting investment, rather than a grand scheme of investments putting to very different sectors everywhere. So you see a very different nature of China's role in terms of bringing economies together. So what does that mean for Egypt when you are becoming members of the BRICS?
China has been always, even before the BRICS, a supporter for the Egyptian people and the Egyptian economy. Many projects, Chinese projects and Chinese investments are in Egypt, and they constitute a substantial percentage of the foreign investments in Egypt. We aspire to have giant developmental projects further with China. It's not only this, but also the international trade by using the interbank transactions with the local currencies. Not only developmental projects, but also when you invest and use the yuan and the Egyptian pounds, that is a main issue for the Egyptian economy.
I see.
Especially, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have a crisis, economic crisis nowadays. This is the short term. In the long term, there is an aspiration of having a unified currency, but this is so difficult. It takes at least 10 to 15 years to be established.
How will China balance, on the one hand, its own opportunities and challenges of the economy, on the other hand, work with others for bigger potential, both for the group of members on the BRICS platform and also the potential of China's own development?
Yes, it's not a one-way street. You see, it's not saying new members all eyes on China's investment. Saying now we are becoming new member, and then BRICS, China seems taking the leading role. So China has a deep pocket. I don't think this is the reality, because we need to make tangles happening. We need a joint effort to make this cake, development cake, bigger. So it's not just the China pouring in the money in here and there. As you know, our own economy also now is in the struggling time. So that is why China's business, they need out, continue, like the BRI, Belt and Road. They need to do the business abroad. Like now we have this new energy car becoming the leading export commodity. Yeah, a lot of new energy products, China also playing the leading role. So this is combined with this green development globally, this climate change. So like Egypt, also now the gas, I know, I traveled to Egypt also a number of times. I think Egypt also suffering from like gasoline and even fuel, is short of fuel, even several hours power cut now because those fuel shortage. So why not this new energy car? Yeah, becoming also a new, the development entry point. Some partner in Egypt maybe can together with Chinese, those car maker company, together make this new energy car, and then can save the fuel and also convenient for people to realize the dream to becoming car owner. So I think lots of new area can be jointly to develop them, to get those potential.
Professor Boutros, good ideas. Final words from you.
Well, Egypt is not only a big market of 107 million people, but it is the market, the gate for Africa. So it is the northern gate for Africa. It is the connection between Africa and Europe. It is the connection, the chain between the global south and the west, the north, by Suez Canal. So Egypt in particular has a strategic location. It is pivotal for the Egyptian, for the BRICS economy, for the BRICS future. So that's why Egypt was the apple of the new expansion of BRICS.
Thank you so much, Professor Magid Boutros and Professor He Wenping. Appreciate it. And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight on our YouTube channel and follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us. Bye for now.